All right, guys, welcome to this week's episode of Firepunk Fridays. Today we've got Josh Scruggs with us, and we're going to, have story time and talk about Josh's racing adventures and what he does here and kind of get to know Josh a little bit. But to start out, let's talk about some of the stuff that's going on around the shop and kind of what we're getting ready for with UCC and everything. That kind of seems to consume a lot of what we're doing right now. So seems like the shop as a whole kind of revolves around that because we have to make sure that we get all of our projects done in time for that. So while we personally aren't taking any UCC entries, we do have a couple customers that we're working on. We've talked about Ziegler's quite a bit, and that one is finally getting close to the final stages. They're working on final assembly. Getting all of the Bosch stuff hooked back up, doing nitrous plumbing, and we have test day midweek next week. So Justin was actually just down here this morning. We were going over some of those details, and we definitely have our work cut out because Derek's been on the track for a couple of weeks and set the world on fire when he got started, and so we got a lot of chasing to do. But we're pretty confident that we have the tools to do what we need to do. I don't know if we'll be able to better what he did, but he will have to weigh 4,400 pounds for this event, and we know that we can get to that weight as well. So we're going to see if we can get all of our ducks in a row and chase him down. Aside from that, we've got a number of different projects around right now. We have kind of our normal trucks that in a couple of bays, but you've kind of at least this week's been consumed with Sebastian Luna's truck. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what we're doing on that truck and what that truck is.
Oh, doing a little bit of everything. We did a Comp 3 transmission swap in it. He's got the ultimate goal of hitting 1,400 horsepower on the dyno, so giving it a little baby shot of nitrous. He wants a cool one-off purge system, and I've been kind of eyeballing the truck and working my way around it, trying to think of something different that ain't nobody else done. And I got some ideas, and it's starting to take shape, and see if the ideas can become a reality.
Yeah, I think we'll maybe have Connor pick up some footage on some of that when you get it wrapped up. But Sebastian's truck is not our kind of typical truck around here. It's a very custom. What year truck is it?
2014.
2014. Yeah, it's a 4th gen. And it's a dually. It's lifted probably way higher than what I could actually even get in right now. But
I can stand flat-footed, and I look at the Dodge emblem.
So it's pretty tall. But it's a build that he's had done for a while, and we're just kind of doing some upgrades and planning to put it on the dyno before it leaves here. So I think he plans to have it at UCC at the Show and Shine, and does a lot of the truck show stuff. So you'll see that truck around. Been working on Andrew Benford's truck some.
Yep.
Doing, we kind of did a laundry list of things on that one again. Added a wastegate to the turbos, and I think right now you guys are putting a full manual valve body in it.
Full manual.
And will that just be like a ratchet shifter setup, or is that getting a lemur or anything of that sort?
Nope, it's just a plain B&M ratchet shifter with Muldoon switches in it, and that's basically it. Got to get it back on the dyno, do some timing things, fuel things.
Yeah. So then in the fab shop, obviously, like I talked a little bit earlier, we're spending a lot of time on Ziegler's right now. Actually just got done wrapping up an 850 cage in Hunter Coffey's truck. That's a truck that is getting a D&J Enforcer here as soon as we get the engine. So really the 850 cage is about the first of the things that we've done to a pretty long list of stuff on that truck. And then we're also still working on wrapping up Byron Klein's project. We had pulled the converter out of it and send it out to get restalled. So I think that showed up the other day, and working on getting that transmission back in so that we can get it on the dyno. And I think he still has the goal of making truck wars with that. So I think we still have to put a windshield in it and just button up a few things like that. So if everything goes good with dyno testing, that thing should be out of here next week so he can make it to truck wars. And then next week our focus will kind of shift to Robbie Garcia's truck. So it's showing up from Texas. He's a UCC competitor. has a 4th gen, and it's made decent power before, and he's competed in All Truck Challenge and some of that stuff. But up until now, it was a big lifted truck, and it was a Texas truck. Lifted, big wheels and tires, ranch hand, kind of typical of a truck like that. And he finally realized that this is no longer a Texas truck, that this is a race truck. So he ended up lowering it, and he put one of our 4-link kits on it. Did quite a bit of work himself, and then it's coming here, and we're putting a bigger set of twins on it and fabbing up a weight box for him and a couple things like that to get him ready. And then I think he also did an 849 ECM swap on that. So we have to get all of that squared away and get the dyno stuff done. So
dig through the natural gremlins of a project.
Yeah, it's going to be that whole thing of, finishing a project and doing the last 10% that takes forever. So yeah, we still have plenty on our plates before UCC. Just as a reminder, UCC is going to be a really good event this year. There's a lot of hype coming into it with Derek Rose going as fast as he did, and all the chatter of the horsepower numbers on the dyno. Seems like the dyno is always kind of a big thing for everybody, and this year with that 3,000 horsepower goal being dangled out in front of everybody, that's definitely going to cause a lot of guys to push extra hard. And with not having to sled pull their trucks the next day, I have a feeling that some guys might push a little harder than they should. So just as a reminder, go to the UCC website, use the code Firepunk to purchase your weekend passes if you plan to go. That helps us get some of our costs covered on the racing side of things. And then also, if you want to race, come and race. It's a perfect place for you to get some test and tune in Friday morning and then race with ODSS. We have quite a bit of chances for qualifying. I think we're planning to do 4 rounds of qualifying for the pro classes on Friday, which is pretty unheard of on most of our ODSS races. And then I believe there's another round or so on Saturday. So yeah, lots of stuff going on there. Make sure you check that out. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to address with UCC, but
if you're a new driver, come find somebody.
Yeah.
Got some questions, be more than glad to help you out.
We're definitely going to make sure there's going to be people around Friday morning to help the new folks out. Whether, if you feel like you're intimidated by running the tree or don't know how it all works, don't be scared to ask. And, we want to teach people how to get down the racetrack. It can be a 20-second vehicle or it can be a 5-second vehicle. It's fun for everyone there. Also might mention we still have plenty of VIP passes left. So we have 2 suites on top of the tower there at the starting line. The greatest view of the track, air conditioning, lunch both days.
It's pretty nice up there. You can see the starting line real well, see the end of the track. Yeah, I found myself sneaking up there the few chances that I got last year, and it's a nice place to get away from everyone and watch the action. And so let's get into your story and what you do here and all that fun stuff. But tell us a little bit, what do you do here? Your role's changed a little bit recently, so I guess cover a little bit what you've done here and what you're doing now. I'm the service shop manager / team lead, however you would determine that part of it. And I still turn a few wrenches as we're a few people short, but ultimate goal is go around, make sure everybody knows what they're doing, how they're doing it, and get vehicles in and out the door so we can cut this lead time back a little bit.
Yeah. So you started out here, what did you do first? I can't even remember.
Yep.
You were wrenching?
Shop tech.
Yep. So you wrenched for, how long did you do that before we moved you over to the trans?
1.5 to 2 years probably.
Mm-hmm. So from there, you went over into the trans room and you went directly to doing valve bodies, correct? So Josh did pretty good in filling a hole there. We had a pretty long time employee move on to another job opportunity. And so we had a hole in the valve body department. And at first it felt kind of overwhelming because when you have somebody in that position that long, they get to know a lot of tips and tricks and, how everything works. I would say there's valve body assemblers and then there's valve body builders, and it takes a good little while to become a valve body builder to understand what all those channels and everything do. And Josh jumped in there real good with and had a good mechanical understanding and was able to figure out how a lot of that stuff works. And you helped us advance our full manual program a good bit and some of that stuff. So
a lot of hours sitting at home tracing valve body passages.
Yeah. I don't know if you've ever seen the inside of a valve body, but I used to assemble a few valve bodies back in the day, and I never even bothered figuring out where the passages went, because there's lots of channels and lots of holes and switches, and understanding how those switch valves work and all that different stuff.
It's easy to figure out where it goes. It's just a little more complicated figuring out how many other things are affected by that circuit.
So yeah, you did that for, I don't know how long you did that, but then it was just been in the last 2 months or so that we moved him over in the service manager role. And we're trying to, I guess you would say, grow up a little bit as a company and get a little bit more of managerial positions in place and be able to take a little bit of load off of Levon, because inevitably it seems like he wears too many hats and can't keep up with everything. So the fun of growing a business, I guess. But so yeah, that's a little bit what Josh does. Talk a little bit about where you came from. You moved from Virginia. Tell me a little bit about your, I guess, mechanical background. Like, where did you start wrenching? Like, what was the first? When did you first take interest in mechanics, or like, was your dad a mechanic? Like what? Yeah.
He was a mechanic in his younger years. And then as soon as they came out with computer technology, he said, scratch this. It was about the same time they came out with locking converters and stuff like that. And he opened his own construction business there for a while and did that for quite a few years. Wound up working for the county landfill, in charge of designing the compactor sites of how they should work and how things came in, and moved back to his roots of raising chickens.
There you go.
So I kind of grew up on the farm. I remember more stuff from the farming days than I do any of the other stuff. I remember going to the landfill with him as a kid on the weekends. But
your mechanical knowledge or interest would have probably just started from being around the farm and kind of...
I don't remember it, but my mother has a story of my dad working on the tractor and me taking a bunch of things apart and him not being able to figure it out, and me just come running around the corner like, haha, you missing these?
Yeah.
And says it goes there.
Yeah.
Had a good many of friends when we was younger. I used to ride four-wheelers and tear stuff up, and I would tinker with them and fix them when we rolled them and doing dumb young kid things.
Yeah. And sounds like you're probably one of those mechanics that became a mechanic as a necessity for your need for speed. I think there's a lot of us like that out there.
I was always trying to figure out how to do something that I probably shouldn't have been trying to figure out how to
do. Yeah. So, getting into, race vehicles or go fast stuff, like some of the first stuff you dabbled in would have been import stuff, or?
Yeah. Along the line somewhere, I ran into a group of guys that are still really good friends of mine, and they was into the Honda scene, and I started messing around with it with them, and we built anything from just a little street driver to have fun in to remember doing a couple of them and make one pass out on the street and split the sleeves clean out of the block.
Yeah. So like what year would that have been? Like, was that back in the Fast and Furious era, or was that later? Like,
probably 2009, 10 area.
Gotcha.
We was playing with that, going to a track. Me and this same group took a CRX and decided we didn't want it in the front of the car and put it in the trunk. And my other buddy rewired the entire engine harness and ran it in the back, and it made like 300 horsepower. But I remember taking it to the track for the first time. We had been over this car top to bottom doing alignments. Get to the track, and my buddy's like, nah, that alignment's out. And he changing it. I made the first pass on that thing, and it looked like some of my Pro Street videos. That thing was skating all over that track. I get back, I was like, it's something wrong with this thing. It's darting all over the place. But when we got it all said and done, it would pull the wheels about a 2-liter bottle and just a little, but you could reach to the front of the car and pick the whole front of the car up.
So you pretty much were just trying to make a wheelie machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having fun.
Sounds perfectly safe.
I think my one friend still has it sitting there at his house.
Yeah.
Kind of went from that, and I had worked at several golf courses when I was still in high school, and winded up becoming a golf course mechanic, fixing all the tractors and the mowers and stuff. And then my one buddy that we did Hondas with, he worked for a local service station. Basically, it's an Exxon, do oil changes, motors, and stuff like that. And he got me my first real mechanic's job.
Okay. And how old would you have been roughly when you got a mechanic job?
24, 25.
Okay. So then how did you go from that to you ended up opening your own diesel shop, Triple Heart Repair?
Repair and fab.
Repair and fab?
Well, that was kind of a long laundry list of things that led up to that. I don't know exactly what I was thinking there, but so I worked there for several years and had a 96 or 97 Dodge that the last time fuel prices went through the roof. I decided I was going to park it, and my dad's like, well, let's turn it into a pulling truck. And I was like, I can't afford that. And he said, well, I'll pay for all the materials if you do the work.
Yeah.
So we built a 2.6 pulling truck. Back then, it still had the 250 map groove. It wasn't the smooth bore stuff as it was now. Mm-hmm. And we put a truck together, and slowly but merrily, we worked our way up with some help of some other people around that had pulling trucks. Wiles Diesel Repair in another county over offered me a job over there, and that's where I started in the diesels.
Okay.
They was a Duramax specialty shop, but they worked on everything too, but mainly Duramaxes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've learned being around Josh that he's definitely not just coming specific in his knowledge like a lot of us are. Like just yesterday we had a neighbor stop by with a Ford 7.3 problem, and I was lost, and I said, I know just the man I'm going to go find. And I think Josh had some pretty good ideas on diagnosing some of that. But you've definitely had your fingers in a little bit of everything on, whether it's diesels or gas powered stuff. Like I think you've worked on quite a bit of stuff. So that's really helpful around here. Just, man, being able to diagnose stuff is 3/4 of the battle. So
yeah,
that's been super helpful. But yeah, and then what made you go from sled pulling to drag racing?
Rule changes. I had enough parts sitting on a shelf that you can't sell because they're illegal parts now. And we got to the point where we're done with this. And I kind of had posted it for sale and had a guy message me. He's like, would you trade me for a 590 truck? We talked back and forth, and we winded up making the trade. Lo and behold, it wasn't quite 590 ready, and we went and made the trade and got it back. And at that point in time, Blake Miller was working for me, and he likes to cut things up, so we started cutting.
I don't remember. Was that the truck that originally
was one of y'all's buddies?
One of our, yeah. Why can't I say his name? Is a local truck around here for quite a while, and so it's kind of interesting to, like, we had completely lost track of it, and all of a sudden the thing appeared again, and it's kind of man, I can't completely drawing a blank on his name, but truck that we had worked on at the shop way back in our early days, and by the time you had it, it was a good bit different.
Yeah,
but,
it was fully gutted.
Yeah.
Had a 6.7 with just rods in it and a 480.
One of the first memories I have of Josh was Shide. I don't remember what year, 18 maybe.
It was either
17 or 18. We were out there.
18.
We were out there with the Pro Street truck. It was the year that we were messing with the trans brake valve body, and we had probably one of my least favorite raced weekends ever that weekend, because we kept pulling the transmission and trying this and that, and it just wasn't working. Everything was fighting us. I don't know. I think we pulled the transmission 3 times that week, and I just remember, I would say probably Saturday night. It was late at night. I was done. Like I didn't want anything. I didn't want anything else to do with this dumb truck that we kept working on. And Josh and his dad and a couple of his friends were sitting in lawn chairs around their 590 truck. And I remember walking by them and saying something to Josh. I was like, listen here, if you want to keep sitting in that chair, you just keep racing 590. Don't ever come race Pro Street. And wouldn't you know, it wasn't later that year when I got a call from Josh, I think it was December or whatever, and he was inquiring about buying Seth Sullivan's old truck. And so we got to talking about that a little bit and what it would take to do, Pro Street in it and the updates it would need and all that stuff. And that was, by then, that was the time where at Rudy's that fall, we had gone 490s with the truck. So we finally reached our 4-second goal. And backing up to Shide, how sick and tired I was of working on this thing. Some of it, that was the year that we raced both the Pro Street truck and the Pro Mod, and it was just too much. So I was kind of looking to, see if there was maybe some options to move on from the Pro Street truck, and Levon wasn't quite at that point yet. But long story short, I ended up kind of proposing a deal to Josh. I was pretty vague. I said, pretty much if there was a rolling chassis that was Pro Street ready and, it has all listed everything that the truck had, I said, if you could buy it for this price, would you be interested? And he's like, well, I think he called me about right away. He's like, are you talking about the truck I think you're talking about? And he was like, well, if that's what you're talking about, yeah, I'd be really interested. So that's the point where I pitched it to Levon, and we took a couple days or maybe close to a week to get Levon to do some serious thinking, and finally ended up doing the deal. So that's kind of how that all went down. And then you bought that. You wanted to run Pro Street, but you wanted to enter UCC as well.
Yeah.
So you did UCC that year with it. Didn't go so well.
No.
Talk about that a little bit. I guess just what all you had kind of done to the truck, and how that all ended up going down.
We spent many hours in the shop getting that truck ready for UCC, and when the motor finally showed up, we got it in there, and Brett Vollmer, is that his name?
Jared Vollmer.
We flew him out here to tune the truck. Didn't go so well. Just didn't want to run right, didn't want to play nice, and then we winded up here with the truck.
You called Levon trying to see if he could tune it, and I think Levon's answer was pretty much, you were coming right up against UCC. You were within a week
out.
Right. And I think Levon was like, if you're serious about getting this thing fixed, you're going to be best off just putting that thing on the trailer and get up here. We're going to put it on the dyno, and we can at least figure out what's going on with it. That first night when you got it off the trailer and we started it, it was probably one of the biggest smoke shows I've ever seen. Ended up having compression issues pretty much. So
they had tried a R&D piston in it and moved the ring gland down 100 thou, and which doesn't sound a whole lot, but it was just enough that it just didn't have enough compression to run.
We got it on the dyno and ended up making a little bit of power with it. Am I right?
Yeah, we got it on the dyno. We never shot it with nitrous and did 1860 something with the twin setup that was on.
So it made power, just wasn't quite what it should be, and it was just extremely ill-mannered.
We winded up. We didn't get it on the dyno with that motor.
Oh, really? Okay.
Bob Milliken out here and went back to
change the pistons out
and put in it.
Right. So, got the engine back to where it needed to be to go to UCC. And you had a 48 in it at that point, right?
Yeah.
Which, we had never put a Turbo 400 in it.
We made the power on the dyno, went back home with it. We had a bolt-together torque converter in it at that time. Went to the racetrack, and as soon as I let go of the brake, it sheared every single bolt off it, held that converter together.
Wow.
And made a really big mess on the track. Pay attention to the fact how we say pull over.
Yeah.
Do that, because I most definitely didn't pull over, because I didn't realize there was anything wrong, and made a full pass
Yeah.
with a split in half converter. How it still went down the track, I do not know.
Yeah.
But it did about a 3 foot wide transmission fluid from one end to another.
What
the
a
local
hot mess.
track guy come up to me after that and he said, "Well, congratulations, son." He said, "It's a cool truck, but you just earned a reward of the biggest mess that's ever been on this track."
That'll make you feel like a heel in a heartbeat, but it happens occasionally, I guess. But yeah, like you said, pay attention when you're on the drag strip, and if you even think there's something wrong, like I would rather wait for you to pull over and look under your truck than have to clean up that quarter-mile long mess. Like that's not fun for anybody. So yeah, then made it to UCC. You had some struggles in drag racing, or I don't really remember how that went.
We was doing fairly well in drag racing and then lost the transmission. I think we was in the top 5 and they had like a 20 to 30 minute turnaround window and it just wasn't enough time for me to swap a trans and I just scratched and gave the win to the other guy because it wasn't going to be enough time there, and then went back to swap transmissions, and then a monsoon came through and we wound up changing the transmission in a river.
Okay. Yeah. And then the dyno day ended up having a catastrophic event of some sort. I don't remember the specifics of that.
Well, what we think happened, we let off of it. We think the piston pulled itself off the rod.
Okay.
And when that happened, the rod said, "I'm coming out, stage left." And pieces of cam, block, you name it, went everywhere. And then the nitrous was on a full throttle switch. Well, in the panic of Bob Milliken trying to get out, he hit it full throttle again with a blowed up motor. And that's where the machine gun fire came from.
You joined the list of trucks to make nice fireballs on the UCC dyno that year.
Yes.
So I just remember...
that was also the year that Tony Burkhart had a real bad fire.
Yeah. I remember at some point after that, maybe Saturday night or something, coming over to your trailer, and at that point I didn't know that Josh was like a cat and he lays down anywhere and gets comfortable, and he was laying beside his trailer, and I think he had probably one of the most tired, defeated looks that I've seen Josh have in a while. And UCC will do that to you. Like you're thrashing for weeks on end, and then when you blow your stuff up and it doesn't go as planned, like it definitely will take the wind out of your sails.
Yeah, I had debated about pulling the motor out of my dually, which is a bone stock motor, and putting in that truck just to sled pull it. And I was like, just not worth it.
Just not worth it.
Because I had done some math and I was going to have to go like 180 to 200 feet to finish it in, I think, the top 10 or top 5. Because I'd put a good enough number on the board that I was in the top 3 on the horsepower, even though it blew up, and done pretty good in the drag race that I couldn't win, but I could be in the...
You could place decent.
Place decent. And I was like, a stock motor, surely, the sled don't even hit hard by 200 feet. Sure, it can go there. And I was like, but then I got to pull it back out and put back in my dually to get back home. Like, no, I'm not doing it.
No, at some point you sit back and recoup a little bit and then enjoy what's left of the weekend. So, yeah, the fun of UCC, it's always a great time. Can be a good time, but it can also kick your butt.
I swore from that time I'd never go back.
So yeah, then I think it wasn't but a month or 2 later that you called us and were like, "So I'm kind of sick of doing the shop thing. Would you hire me?" I mean, it was pretty soon thereafter, wasn't it? Or did you maybe even talk to Levon about it at UCC?
I think I was talking to Levon about it at UC, because that week I was here when that motor was tore down. We was waiting for parts to show up, and I helped around the shop here. I think Levon had mentioned to me, if you're ever looking for a job, call me.
Yeah.
And I kind of called him up and said, "Hey, that job offer still stand? I'm kind of tired of dealing with that." And we talked around a little bit and decided to make it a thing. And I said, "I'll have everything finished at the shop in 2 weeks, and I'll be there."
There you go. So you moved up here then, what, July or?
It was May the 20th was my first day.
Really? Okay. So I guess, yeah, that UCC would have been a little earlier that year. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we sold the Pro Street truck, and then 5 months later, it moved back home.
Yep.
So then...
It was homesick.
Did you get the truck back together to do any racing that year? I don't remember. Yeah.
Industrial got another motor sent out here. We got it in.
Yeah, I think I remember now. Yeah. I mean, we ended up going decently fast by the end of that year.
Went 520s by the end of that year. Just kept struggling with keeping second gear in a trans. It was good for a pass or two, and then no.
Mm-hmm. And then by then, we were confident enough in the Turbo 400, and that winter, you ended up switching over to the Rossler Turbo 400 and went back to the Bosch that winter, correct? And we added the PBX box to be able to do all of that stuff.
We still had the industrial bottom end in it and had one of Drew's heads on it. Yeah, I'd bought the old head off the S10.
Mm-hmm. That was the setup that we went out then, like at Cincinnati, and went fast on about right away, right?
Well, we had went to Wagler's to do some testing there, and we winded up.
Oh, that was we were having trans brake operator error issues.
Yes, we was.
Turns out when you drag race for a long time and you're used to not doing things with buttons on the steering wheel, and you're letting off a brake and pushing a gas pedal, that when you all of a sudden switch to going with, you have to go full throttle on the pedal during spool up, and the foot stays off the brake, and you're letting off a button, it's really hard to make that transition.
Yeah, you'd think it wouldn't be all that hard to keep your foot flat on the floor there.
Yeah.
But you're used to moving your foot for something, and it's something about going like this and releasing your foot at the same time, and then you do nothing.
Yeah, there was a couple passes where it would take off and then it'd fall on its face, and we're standing at the starting line going like, man, what's wrong with this thing? And Josh had come back, he's like, yeah, I let off the pedal. Like, it's just, it's a right brain, left brain thing. And then the one time,
Levon
there was
told me something. I can't remember what it was there. He said, if you don't take and hold this thing to the floor, I'm going to do something. I can't remember what it was, but I made him regret them words.
Because I think at that point you held it to the floor then, but that was you had that one I mean, you took a ride. I mean, that was probably one of the crazier rides I've seen, but you didn't let out.
No.
I think that was also right, probably a pass or two after the time where you let off the trans brake button and then you grabbed it again, and that truck literally did a stoppie pretty much on the starting line. And I think we ended up being able to finish the weekend, but I think ultimately it ended up tearing up the low roller clutch or the sprag or something.
We thought we had lost second gear in it. That's what we had thought, but...
Right. So that weekend we kind of didn't make just a ton of progress, but we kind of started getting a little bit of a foundation under us. And
then getting used to the setup a little bit.
So then got everything fixed back up and went to Cincinnati a couple of weeks later for a no prep. Well, not a no prep. I should say a no time shootout.
Yeah.
It was definitely not no prep. There was really good radial prep there that weekend. And you went, what'd you go that weekend? 490, then 487 or something like that?
No, it was the first pass out the gate, I think, was a 5.0, and then I went a 91 and a 90.
Okay. Yeah. So we were all pretty tickled with that. I mean, that was to the point where we started to see that, sub 5 second passes on a regular basis was going to definitely be a lot easier to do with the Bosch and with the Turbo 400 mostly. That really was a game changer, being able to keep converters alive. And we still had things to learn about the Turbo 400 that you can't do so that you don't tear up the sprag and some of that kind of stuff, but definitely a lot better platform. So
I wound up after that initial thing of not losing, thought we had lost second gear. I never had to send the trans back again after that. It was 90 couple passes on that trans, and when I sold it to Ziegler, they never said anything was wrong with it.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. I mean, we had to learn some things on shift strategies and just some of the things that you can't do with the Turbo 400s. And if you treat them right, they're pretty strong. and definitely a lot more fun when you don't have to pull transmissions all the time. And
That was definitely the best money I ever spent.
yeah, and then from there, well, COVID happened, and then you had just kind of life happen. You kind of took a year off, and
Well, we went to Rocky Top with it.
yeah.
I think that was the only race, or was it one after that?
Yeah, I
wasn't
don't
many
remember. Like,
races that
I
year.
know that COVID year was pretty light on racing.
Well, we went to
But-
Rocky Top, and then it was Shad.
Okay.
And I think them was the only other 2 races we had, because we went to 486 for the record at Rocky Top.
Was that Rocky Top? Okay, gotcha. And that stood for a little while till Johnny came around. And
Yep, a whole whopping month of success. Shad came around, and here came Johnny.
Yep. So what brought about the truck getting sold and going to the rail? Like I remember I was involved in some of that, but I don't
know.
You just kind of decided you wanted to do something different, or?
Well, we had revamped and done the header and the big
Yeah.
turbo and everything, and got that finally figured out how to get it spooled, and we went testing and blew the turbo and whole front clip and windshield out of it. And at the same point in time, I was doing dad things and running around with the kids, and like, I'm not worried about it no more. And I said, to heck with it, we'll sell the thing, and kind of never posted it publicly that we was selling it, and talked to Ziegler, and I think it was one other person that I offered it to. Ziegler wound up buying it, and I was perfectly content with not doing nothing. And then, lo and behold, here comes Lynn again. With
Well, you kept talking to me about, you had some ideas of something. Didn't you want to kind of build a pro mod or something? Or
a pro mod or do a rail, but I was kind of thinking later down the road and stuff. And then here you come with another good deal, and here comes the rail.
Yeah, I don't know. We just were talking after you sold your truck. I remember you kind of had the itch to do something, weren't quite sure what you wanted to do. And then kind of talking with you not being able to necessarily race just a ton throughout the year, like something you can go to 3-4 races a year with and isn't just crazy high maintenance. My idea was, if we can get a lightweight rail and we can get a good power plant in it, like you should be able to go pretty fast with it and not have near the overhead or the work as what you would with, a full-blown pro mod outfit or something. So
and things escalated.
It always escalates around here, Josh. I don't know why we ever, think that it's not going to, but
we go with good intentions, and then we hate money so much we just want to throw it.
But once again, your dad played a role in that.
Yes.
I think your dad likes to go fast as much or more than you do.
Well, from the beginning of starting with the pull-on truck, where he said he'd buy the parts if I did the work, to this day, it's still the same way. I buy nothing for the Pro Street truck or the rail.
Right.
I just do a lot of work.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. Like, I enjoy having your dad around. We're probably going to have to sit him down here in this spot if we can ever convince him to do that. But that'd be interesting having story time with Kenny.
Oh, God.
But yeah, so the rail has not progressed as fast as what we had hoped.
No.
Once again, work kind of gets in the way. And then we also, Drew came on board wanting to do a billet engine for it. Kind of parts shortages and his work has kind of kept some of those projects, a lot further behind than what we had hoped. But turns out that even if we had an engine at this point, I'm not quite sure when we would have gotten the car ready just yet. No. But we have a good bit of work left to do on the car. The plan is pretty much the frame rail is not wide enough back in the engine compartment to fit the engine centered with the way that the timing cover comes off the side. So we need to widen the top rail to make it fit the engine, and then just looking at some of the space constraints we have and the length of the car overall with the power that we're going to put to it, we're going to end up lengthening it at about 10 to 12 inches overall and doing a couple of chassis updates back in that part of the car, pretty much from the cab back There's a couple of main frame rails that are a little bit small. So we'll upgrade some of the sizes and some of those. So pretty much we're going to do a back half on the car, put pretty much a twin to the S10's power plant in it.
Yep.
Is the goal. So we've got a transmission here for it, and Exergy is working on the harness to do a Bosch setup on it as well. And once we get all of our ducks in a row and get the engine in it. Time. I don't know. I think we would still like to say that we have hopes of getting test passes in this fall. I don't know how realistic that is at this point, but I think if we don't at least have some kind of a goal, then it's probably going to keep dragging on. But that's kind of where we're at with that right now. I do have to back up, and you do have to tell me one story.
Oh, God.
So we've learned, the more we work with Josh, the more we hear Josh stories. So occasionally at break time, we'll have story time with Josh. But there was one where I think maybe your Honda was involved or something, and there was something with a deer.
Yes. Yeah,
Let's just say Josh had his younger and less wise days, maybe, where he got into some crazy things, but sounds like they had a good time doing it. A little bit more
of a temper, too. I've mellowed out in my old age. Older age. I'm still a young spring chicken.
Yeah. So tell me about the deer.
Well, yes. It was Josh Shiflett and Kevin Gaynor as the two people that I'm still really good friends with that worked on Hondas. We decided that we was going to restore a 94 Honda Civic. And everybody knows me, knows I like blue. Mm-hmm. We restored this car, did a fresh paint job on it, did a full wire tuck, brake line tuck on this car, painted the engine bay. It was a nice looking little Honda. And we got it done, and I think on the very night we decided that it was ready to actually drive and we was done with the bugs, I was staying with Kevin at that point in time, and we call it the MASH, is an area that is a distance between my one buddy's house and his house. Mm-hmm. I was just cruising along through here, and it is a deer park or deer reserve through there, and lo and behold, here comes a deer, jumps up out of the fence right into the front of this car.
Of course.
With much rage and anger, I kind of jerked the e-brake, and while it was sliding, stepped out and went running after this deer. Well, this deer reserve has a fence that's about 10 foot tall, and deer wasn't thinking. Well, when it bounced off the fence, I was standing there, and I caught it with an uppercut. And I thought I had killed it. So, nice restored car that gets hit by a deer, what else you do with it? You throw it in the trunk. So I put the deer in the trunk, and on my way to my buddy's house again, it comes back to life and bounces off the dash next to me in the car.
So this was a hatchback?
Yes.
Yes.
It's still a dent in the dash where the deer's head bounced off the dash of it. Well, I slam on the brakes and grab it by the head and beat the heck out of it there in the car and just leave it lay there on the seat. And right when I'm pulling in my buddy's driveway, this thing comes back to life again. I was like, oh my God, I ain't leaving it in my car. So I drag it in his parents' house, and I'm yelling at him to come out. And Kevin's like, what do you want? I said, I got a deer. He said, how? You don't have no gun. You're in your car. I said, it hit my car, and I beat it, and now it's back to life. And about that time, it laid out a big deer bellow, and he's like, oh, shit. Well, then it gets loose in his dad's house and goes running down their hallway, and I tackle it into his dad's bedroom wall. And to actually beat it good enough that it was dead that time, because I wanted him to come out with the 22 and shoot it. Well, and his dad rolls out the bedroom, cuts the light on, and says, damn, boy, you got a mess to clean up. And he just walks back in his bedroom.
Crazy. Yeah, I've heard that story a couple of times, and it doesn't get old. It's, definitely not very many people that have beat a deer to death, but apparently Josh has. So yeah, those are some of the fun stories that we get to listen to from Josh occasionally. But no, all in all, we'll like really enjoy having Josh around here. Really valuable to what we got going on here, and we'll just I don't know, hopefully get this dragster together and go fast again, and yeah, keep doing fun stuff, I guess. Hopefully not quite as adventurous or crazy as, you know, putting a live deer in our car or anything, but
And then on with the topic of Garrett Nisses from last week.
oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that. We kind of said we were going to talk about that.
Decides that they want to put an older 6.7 in a 5th gen with a old front timing cover and stuff, do yourself a favor and don't.
Yeah, we had talked about that a little bit a couple of weeks back. I think maybe when Landon was on, we had been working on that project and got everything together, and we kept getting a code for
Crank sync.
Yeah, cam crank wouldn't sync. So kind of started looking at a couple different things and ended up discovering that with the CP4, they put the cam sensor in about, 4 degrees different location.
There's about 2.5 to 3 degrees
Yeah.
off. And there, and the ECM was thinking that cam sensor's at a spot, and when it was in reality at a new spot, and it said that they wasn't in sync.
Right.
When in reality the motor was in sync, but
Yeah.
it would make oil pressure not work and drove not very good.
But really, now that we figured out once, how bad can it be?
After looking at a 21, you could possibly take the front cover off of a 21 that comes factory with a CP3 and it would work, because they changed the covers around.
Oh, okay.
But it still uses the newer style sensors with the CP3, but it's still in the same spot. They just changed where the bolt hole's in the cover, which moves the plug-in to a different location, which makes life simpler too. But
So pretty much we ended up making the new sensor was thinner than the old style sensor to where you could
thinner and about
longer.
5/8 of an inch longer.
Yeah, so we had to make a bushing where we could use the new sensor in the big hole, and in that bushing we ended up making that, position for the new sensor off center so that we could compensate for those 2.5 to 3 degrees, and that ended up fixing the problem. So we did get that figured out. It was a lot of headache. I think I went over there a couple of days when Josh was standing on his head trying to pull the ECU out and doing wiring stuff, and it wasn't his favorite of days, I don't think.
No, because I wound up having to make a whole new pigtail extension out of that harness because it wasn't enough room with the way the cam sensor's designed, because it was facing straight for the CP3, so you couldn't actually have a connector to plug onto it. And I made a harness down out of that thing and did some epoxy resining and made a whole new harness adapter to get it out by the CP3.
Yeah, that's some of the fun things we get to figure out around here. Seems like every time we get into a easy custom project, you run into something that is not near as easy as you might have thought it would be. So the fun of custom, I guess. But well, cool. Hope you guys all enjoyed us chatting with Josh and find it interesting. If you guys want to hear more employee stories, or if there's other things that you'd like for us to talk about, hopefully gonna get a remote connection set up here to where I can talk to people that aren't here at the shop. And I've got some ideas of some people I'd like to talk to in the near future, but always open to your suggestions. And I think we'll call that a wrap for this week, and we'll see you on next week's episode of Firepunk Fridays.